welcome. Good to see you. I'm very excited to see we've got some people with us and to have Milton here with me too.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Excited to get to know more people, more of our community. This is awesome.
Yeah.
See somebody I know out there too. Hey, Ali.
It's
Hi,
good to meet
Milton.
you. Oh, it is nice to see them joining in. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, awesome.
Did you want both are together? I'll come and go. It's actually on you.
Let's-
We've got a minute or so yet left, but I can see it's growing, which is awesome.
Yeah. If you're here, I'd love to know in the chat if you could say where you're zooming in from. That would be awesome just to get us
Yeah.
warmed up. I would love to just, yeah, because this is awesome, awesome day. Let's see.
Hey, Sean, good to
And
see
I'm
you.
a wow. I'm gonna practice my pronunciations because I have to get better at pronouncing words I have not said a lot. So I'm gonna get better.
So you can
But I'm
start with
looking. This is
Karamburra
awesome.
if you like.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. I was waiting for someone to help me. Koroboro. Is that it?
That's pretty close.
Para.
Korobara. Okay. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Okay. I'm seeing something I can pronounce. Okay. Well, some. Okay. I'm learning. I am learning. I am learning. I am learning. Okay. This is very helpful. I love it. Look at all these amazing places. I love it.
You just have to familiarize yourself, Milton, and then come on down.
You, oh, I'd love to. Yes, I'd love to.
All right, we'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
Yes, we've got a live group in New Zealand hosted by Yulia, who's watching collectively. So, special hello there. Oh, look, so excited to see our Western Australian people. Now, that's a long way from where I am. So. Morning, Kate. Oh, it's lovely to see you all here.
Oh, good morning, Andrea. How are you?
Very good. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Milton. How you going?
Hello. I'm
And
doing
Gail
well.
here too. Hi, Milton. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Gail.
Hi,
Good to
everyone.
see you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's great. Hello, Tracy.
Oh, some good faces to see here.
Hmm.
And it's really lovely to see in the chat the breadths and widths of where people are arriving. So you're very welcome.
Milton said
Absolutely love it.
people can't see you, they can only see Milton.
Now, can I check? Can people see me as well as Milton? Well, I got that. Yep, thumbs up.
I
I'm
see some
getting
head nods.
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Good. Okay, that's good. Well, we might begin if that's okay. I know people are still coming in and they're very welcome, but it would be lovely to make a start if I could. So I want to welcome everybody. Good morning. A very warm welcome. My name is Andree Evans and I'm your host today. And it's wonderful to have you here for this very first event as we celebrate the beginning of something really exciting together. It's the Enneagram Association of Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, an affiliate of the International Enneagram Association. And whether you're joining us from across Australia, Aotearoa, or elsewhere in the world, welcome. And whether the Enneagram has been a big part of your life for many years, or whether you're joining us simply curious to learn more, you're also very welcome. Can I start by acknowledging our First Peoples? As we gather online from many places, and as you can see, we are all over the place, We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waters from which we join. We honour Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia and acknowledge Maori and Tunga Whinawa of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and honour the enduring wisdom, cultures and relationships to land that continue to shape these places. And there's some other people I want to acknowledge, the small band of passionate Enneagram enthusiasts who worked so hard to make all this happen. We have an incredibly talented, generous team that continues to blow me away with what they have achieved. So on behalf of all of our new members that you serve, to our beautiful team, thank you. Today marks something significant for the Enneagram in our region. Today we start the Festival of Enneagram, a week to launch our new community-based Enneagram Association, and it's also an affiliate of the International Enneagram Association. So that feels worth pausing for. For many years, people across Australia and Aotearoa and New Zealand have been engaging deeply with the Enneagram through teaching, therapy, coaching, leadership, spiritual formation and community. And now for the first time, we have an opportunity to gather more intentionally, to learn together, to deepen our understanding of the Enneagram and contribute our unique regional voices into the wider global Enneagram conversation. And to help us begin this important moment, it's a real privilege to welcome someone who represents that broader global Enneagram community, Milton Stewart. Milton is a globally recognised voice in leadership transformation and the applied use of the Enneagram in professional environments. And as president of the International Enneagram Association, Milton is helping shape the future of the Enneagram globally, supporting Enneagram practitioners everywhere to grow awareness of the Enneagram and its value in personal development, in leadership, in teams, communication and organisations. And what stands out to me, Milton, about your work is your ability to bridge deep psychological insight with practical application, helping leaders and organisations lead with greater awareness, clarity and intentionality. And we need that. As we launch the first ever IEA affiliate in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, it feels especially meaningful to begin with someone who brings a global perspective and a deep appreciation for the power of community. Milton, welcome. We're delighted you're here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. This is a amazing occasion. Yes.
We're very privileged to have you here, and we have been blown away by the support that we have received. So thank you very much for that. So I'm very interested in your perspective on things and what you can share with us from a broader perspective. What do you think? Why do you think it matters in the life of the Enneagram for people to come together in an association like ours?
Yeah, this is, oh my goodness. There's so many reasons, but I'll stick to a few. One of the most important reasons that we come together as an association is one, because belonging happens. The way we have a certain language we use, like we have a certain language. The Enneagram has its own language. And the way that we communicate around doing inner work, around working together, around understanding the system of the Enneagram, like it matters to have people you can work with that you don't have to try to educate while you're talking to them, or like you're excited about some subtle inner work you did and they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? Okay, sure. Yeah. What is that thing? Okay. A space where you understand and feel seen, feel heard, and you feel psychologically safe to share what's actually happening in your mind or in your own inner work, because that is so important for us to continue on the journey. Because the inner work journey for us as Enneagram practitioners or Enneagram enthusiasts, you can't do it all by yourself. Like there's the journey has to start to intercept and come, and you get along with people and you figure out people, and then you also see how your ego intertwines in working with people, even with people inside your Enneagram community. You're like, what is happening, right? So
especially when
I know, like that's the thing that's so fascinating. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I'm still frustrated. And I know the Enneagram type, mine and theirs. What is going on here? What do I need to work on? It's yes, 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 and yes. And then and what that does, that expands us. Um, it expands us to be able to think a little broader, see things a little bit different, put shoes on from someone else whose shoes aren't like ours, and see how do they see the world? Where are they coming from? And it's a beautiful challenge on this journey that we're on, to kind of help us navigate it in a, I would say, a more conscious way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say that. So that's one big thing I would say. Yeah,
yeah, that's okay. I hear you on that.
yeah.
I think another part of what's driven us is the idea that regional voices matter. I'm wondering what you think about the possibility of, or what are the possibilities when a region develops its own voice in the Enneagram community?
This is I love what you're asking here, because like the regional communication, the regional community, the regional collaboration matters because there's a synergy around the history. And there's a synergy even around the language sometimes, even if it's not necessarily just the same spoken language. There's a certain language of life. There's a certain culture of the way that this particular area embodies life. And there's a natural understanding of what's going on. And so there's something special that happens when we feel like, wow, I'm understood from a somatic level. Our bodies and nervous systems can rest, and we don't have to spend so much energy sometimes trying to further explain or fit in. But it's like, oh, this really matters in this area of the world. So it may look different, and it can look different, and it's okay to look different. The diversity is what really makes us special if we allow ourselves to create space for it and be inclusive of it. But it allows us to have this unique custom version of the way that we interact, the way that we connect, the way that we show up for each other and ourselves. That is, I don't know, it's just a beautiful expression of humans and cultures that we've built. In
Mm,
some regions, because of your history, you have a different way of gathering. You have a different way of doing things because it works for your community specifically when you get together.
mm,
Right. And so that's the beauty of it. Like there's such a beauty to being able to belong in a regional area, because yes, there are a lot of things going on globally, and it's a beautiful thing. But sometimes you need that more intimate space
mm,
where you are able to engage a little bit more. You're able to reach the place a little bit more. You may be able to physically go there a little bit easier. It's not such a, we were talking about this earlier, time wise. Like when we start playing with global, the time gets crazy. Like, you know, we're doing
mhm.
things at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. And it's like, okay, I'm tired, but I want to be engaged and I love what we're doing. But when we have regional
Yes.
um, affiliates and community, you can do things at a time that works for everyone in the region.
Yeah.
And that is so helpful because our bodies, and we can fully show up and not be like tired
Mm,
or kind of halfway be there. It's like, okay, how can we do this that works for all of us? So there's a deep resonance, I believe, that happens when you can have regional connections. And then after that, obviously be able to share globally as well. But
mm,
the regions are so powerful. Like the
mm.
community you can build in a region is so powerful because of the shared understanding, knowledge, connection, and history that you have.
Yeah. There's still so big challenges for the distances that we are attempting to cover and across two countries. So there's still big challenges, but I agree with you. I think the real possibility there, and I'm very curious to hear those local voices, to hear and bring together that flavour. I think for years there's been a lot happening, but it felt a bit siloed. And my real hope is that there's bridge building too. I think that's the other thing that having an association can offer, a real chance for people to come together and collectively grow. And I think that's what's really exciting for me.
Mm.
Um, one of the hopes behind the association is to build not simply membership but genuine community. You've seen Enneagram communities around the world. What distinguishes communities that really flourish from those that might struggle?
Um, the ones that flourish, they meet more often and more regularly. When you do this, you become a part of an association or a community like an affiliate. The ones that I see that really thrive, they have committed members and they actually do their best to meet specifically at a certain time or a certain day or a certain event. So even if you can't meet in like person all the time because you're covering such a large, scope of land in different places, if you can at least have one or two times you meet together,
Yeah,
like in person, and then the rest is online, that does enough to maintain a really, really deep connection so that you keep it going, because that's the thing. Are we showing up? Because when you do show up and you make that rich, and I know everyone here kind of like at least knows about the Enneagram, but if you've ever been to a workshop or a conference, especially there is something special and magical that happens and you meet people and it's like they're your friends or they're connections for life. You know them for like 3 days and they're like, hey, if you come in my city, you can stay in my house. And it's interesting because you've only known them like 3 days, but because we do this work so that we're not so surface, people get to touch the essence of who we are. And
mm,
so we build connections that last lifelong,
mm,
that are just beautiful. Like, you never know what you may need help with or how you can help another person, right? In any standpoint, personal or professional. And so it's just this beautiful way that I've seen it
yeah.
work for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think you nail something there because I also think in terms of just personal transformation work, we need community. We can't rely on studying on our own or reading a book. We need that connection
No.
to heal and to grow. And
Yes. And like you're saying, in the area of community, especially when you're able to meet the affiliates who are able to do it and meet more often and keep it going, you do see the transformation of many people in a group. And this is what's so powerful about it. You get to see so many members grow, so many members transform. You get to be with members as they grow and transform, and people can be with you. Because
mm,
sometimes I think we do get on this journey, and I'll speak for myself. I'm not gonna say sometimes, but I speak for myself. I can have a lone ranger mentality, meaning that I have to do it all myself, a lone wolf mentality. I have to do all this inner work and work so hard to do all this stuff. And it's more private and all these things. But the things that I keep private a lot of times are things that the community can help me with. So it's my work to constantly share those things in a safe container
mm,
and allow people to pour into me. Because, a lot of us probably pour a lot into other people, but we also sometimes struggle to allow people to pour into us who do care about us. And so that is part of the most beautiful part about affiliates that I see in the community that are doing so well. They start to learn how to pour into each other, and to continue doing that throughout life, like all of life, all the way. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty special, isn't it? And it's an exciting kind of possibility, I think. Uh, and when we see it happen, it's completely life changing. Yeah, it's completely life changing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to ask your thoughts on including not just regional voices, but First Nations wisdom and perspectives, which might be outside dominant frameworks in the Enneagram conversation. And traveling around the world, I know you've got a chance to really experience that. What do you notice when that happens?
There is, when we start including First Nations, and we start to look at inclusivity in a holistic way, I think it becomes healing. I think that's probably one of the best words I can say for it. When we actually start to look at like who preceded us before here, like I feel like there's a layers of healing that happens, not just for myself, but I see it for the people around and the people in the community, because we recognize that like it's way more to like this world, this life. There's so much more wisdom that we honestly have lost and we're trying to find back. Like a lot of the wisdom we have lost based on who knows what has happened, with a bunch of stuff
Mm,
happening in our world, unfortunately. But there's so much wisdom that we are trying to rediscover
yeah.
because we had either it's been like stolen or destroyed or hidden or it's like underground or it's how do we constantly find those things? And I feel like those things are very healing to us as a whole, as a community. And I've seen that really, I would say, repair and make people feel um, very acknowledged because there's a lot of people who feel overlooked
Mm,
because of where they come from, because of their roots, because of their ancestors, because of their heritage isn't acknowledged regularly, maybe not in schools, maybe not in the public. And so for our community as Enneagram practitioners and enthusiasts and lovers, when we do that, it's amazing to see the joy and the dignity that springs from people when we do this. And it's also amazing to see what we learn because there's so much to learn. When I go so many places, like I'm just looking to be a little sponge. People have questions for me, but I'm trying to be a sponge because there's so much I know I don't know. There's so much, and there's so much I can learn in the humanity of life in history that I can be like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Let me listen. Okay, I'm listening. And that helps me to be a better human. That helps me on my transformational journey. That keeps me humble and it helps me honor because I think this is another where I think when we talk about honoring First Nations, like honoring, like we have to find ways to do more honoring of people who came before us, the wisdom that was there, the wisdom that is still there, and the communities that have, not been treated well or have been like dismissed or their history has been tattered. We have to do and constantly work on how do we honor them properly or and consistently figure out those ways. So to me, that's the thing that I have been learning and still learning to this day. So that's the richness it brings to the community because we think we
mm.
have it all figured out, and then we learn something new from like ancient wisdom from like a First Nation. We're like, oh my, okay, let me be quiet. Let me learn. Okay,
Mm.
yeah,
I like that. I think it's honoring and I think it's respect and from a position of learning, from a position of humbleness. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about the global perspectives? Where do you feel the energy or the momentum in the Enneagram world right now? What's happening that's alive for you?
Ooh, there's that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. So okay, from the global perspective, from what I see, there's so much movement and transition happening here. It's from a larger scope, how do we consistently find ways to get the Enneagram into places where the Enneagram is not currently? So, how do we get it into areas where people truly need this so that they could be better humans to other humans and to themselves? And so, it's the practice of like, I see a trend of people trying to figure out how do I get this in there? So, sometimes it's like, I'm not marketing myself as I'm an Enneagram this. No, I am a therapist who uses the Enneagram. I am a leadership coach who uses the Enneagram. Like it's finding ways where we can meet sometimes the barrier that people have, like the Enneagram. What's that? I don't know. And we meet them where they are so that then we can share a tool we all know to be transformational. So I do see that happening across the globe where there was a trend for a short second where it got really hot on social media and so being Enneagram, whatever, was like super like popular for a second because it got super viral. But that's kind of gone down to like, oh, like we still can be effective without having to overly market ourselves as Enneagram this. And in some spaces it works, but as we're trying to move it out into different professions, who sometimes can struggle with anything that isn't overtly scientifically, tested type of thing, even though there are, proof of the Enneagram and everything, uh, our wording matters. It,
Yeah.
it matters. So I see a lot of people making sure that we are not getting lost in like getting so excited about telling them the tool and the types and the numbers, but getting excited about, okay, how can I use and implement this tool so that we can do the actual work that's
Yes.
required to help like
Yes.
our client or a population or ourselves. Like that is the trend I see happening. Also, the other trend I see, because I have to mention this, I'm actually speaking on this. I was asked to speak on this in the IEA China regional conference coming up. AI in the Enneagram. And not from the perspective of people trying to just use AI to put in Enneagram stuff. No, no, no. They really want me to look at, there's a part of us when we get too when we overuse anything, we give our decision making power over to it, we give our authority over to it, and it always affects us in an unhealthy way, right? It takes away some part of our humanity in a way that we don't always recognize it. So what I see here is that Enneagram practitioners, but this is good, where it's like, okay, we are digging in even deeper. Our retreats, our workshops, the way that we work together, it's special. There's nothing like working with a group or another human. When you talk about Enneagram, like transformation, inner work, there's nothing like it. I mean, seriously, it's like some of the best things ever. If I could spend like half the year in retreats and workshops and conferences about the Enneagram,
Same.
I would. I would need the other half of the year though to like integrate, because when you leave one, you'd be like, okay, that was a lot. My body, my heart, and my mind is blown, and I need some more time to integrate. But I would. There's literally nothing like it. So I see a lot of people around getting even more serious about the inner work, the
Mm.
asking better questions, like being a better professional in what they do. And how do I also start to incorporate way more things into my Enneagram practice? Like, how do I look at, oh, the Enneagram crosses over into this avenue, and this avenue, and how do I apply it in this area? Because it's beautiful, because it applies to like everything basically. And so it's really cool to start seeing these nuances that people add to it.
Yeah.
I'm just always surprised. It's so many
Yeah.
new things.
And it's becoming, because of that, it's becoming more integrated, isn't it? Rather than a standalone kind of, and that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
And the move to apply and look. So it's not about
Yes.
just teaching the Enneagram. It's about what do I do with it. And I think that's a really important part of being able to make a case for it, to be able to say this has value for people. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Mhm. Yep.
What opportunities are emerging, do you think, for Enneagram or people who work in the space with Enneagram? What do you think? What do you see happening?
Um, the opportunities, when I think about it, I look at the whole world, and we have a lot going on. Let's be honest. A lot is going on in our world.
Mm.
It's always been a lot, but right now it seems extra spicy in our world. I'll say it that way. And very chaotic.
Yeah.
This is where, if we are doing our inner work seriously, if we are attuned inside of how we show up and be, literally, we have so much of an ability to change people, communities, groups around the world, literally by who we are literally being in this time, right? A regulated nervous system is one of the best forms of resistance to things that are not good in the world. Just having a regulated nervous system, because you help regulate other nervous systems. And what that does, that makes you attractive as a person. People want to be around people who like help their nervous system be regulated. And so whether you're in your family doing it, helping your family out, whether you're doing it in a profession, these things work in both. Like us doing our inner work and being able to do that matters. And so where I see the opportunity is that technology is moving so fast. There's so much chaos in the world. There's all these different things going on. People need help. People need help. We have a tool. I'm grateful. We have a tool that either found us, we found it, somebody gave it to us, somebody, well, however we got to it, that allows us to find our way home to our essence,
Mm.
allows us to be better humans, allows us to love ourselves and others in our community better. And that gives us an immense ability to grow, share, connect, and spread it amongst ourselves. So I think this is a prime opportunity. I really do. Even though it seems kind of chaotic and the world seems all like this and this is, yeah. But it's a prime time because so many people are dysregulated because of everything that's going on. This
Yeah.
is our time to show up. This is when we show up even more in the work and in community. When people see that, it's like, oh, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to learn about that. You something different about you. Oh, my goodness. We are the change more than what we say. We can say a whole bunch of stuff. And I talk a whole lot, as you can tell. But how I show up as in my being when I'm around people or when I'm doing stuff, that's the thing that actually will shift people, because it's your words, yeah, they help some, but it's who are you and how do you show up actually because you've done your inner work. That's the stuff. So yeah, opportunities is if we show up in our inner work being, we will attract clients and customers, and we will also make the area around us and community better. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's so important. And you're right. It's a time when we really need that, but it's such important work. And someone else said to me, it's about we need to ground in ourselves in the turbulence of the world to actually be able to show up at all and model, I guess, what we want others to share too. Can I ask a little bit about how you use in your work, and I suppose in your role with the IEA, how you use the Enneagram for human organisations, like in terms of leadership or teams? What can we learn from that as an emerging association?
So one thing I would say this, being a part, and I'm an honest person. I'm an honest person, y'all. I have to be careful. Sometimes I'm too honest, and I have to be like, okay, Milton. All right. So being a part of like IEA Global's board and now being the president has been some of the greatest inner work I've ever had to do. It has been one of the best teachers of my life for a lot of different reasons. But it's always approaching it from the standpoint of like, okay, what can I learn a little bit more? Where is my ego trying to show up? And what can I do about it? How do I have this conversation with this person that feels some type of way? You know, how do I make space for them and their humanity too? Right? How do we build stuff together? Because it's different. It's so interesting because personally we know how to use the Enneagram, but what I see a lot of times in organizations, even though they may be Enneagram knowledgeable, it's like all of a sudden when they get to working together, Enneagram goes out the window. It's like they forgot the tool that they have. I think Tom Condon says, he has a running joke that says, only if we had something that could help us through this, because it was like it's like a conflict, but it's like we have a tool that helps us, and we tend to get stuck. I got to get this thing. And so it's how do we constantly bring in the practices, the principles of our own inner work and the Enneagram into what we're doing, like into our work actually, right? So number one is always starting, like when I always work with like organizations, the leaders, and specifically the leader, I work very deeply with them because they're going to have so much influence. And it's even if you don't know how much influence you have, just by being in the position, the things you say or you don't say, it impacts the whole group. Like it impacts the whole group. It is what it is. It's the gift and the responsibility, both, right? You know, so that's one thing, making sure that the leader is doing deep work because they're going to have so much influence. So whatever the leadership team is, after I work with the head leader, if they have one, I work with the leadership team because we've got to figure out what's going on and how we can work through and on some things. And that's been some amazing work to see people who clash so hard. I mean, like clash where it was like, I can't stand this person. I'm not talking about the board on this one, but I can't stand this person, right? And then all of a sudden, like after a while, after a couple of trainings with them, they're like, they get out the car like they best friends. And my mind's blown. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you, Enneagram and inner work. Oh my goodness, yes. Like, you know, I trust in what I do, but I know that I was there for a couple of hours. They had to continue to do the work. So I would say creating the space so that people can feel seen and heard. And I would say the compassion and empathy for each other. And this is one thing I do, since we're kind of talking about how I kind of teach it and share it. I try to make sure when I'm teaching the types that I share the empathetic side of them so people can understand where they're coming from, right? Because even if you don't fully get it, can you understand where they're coming from? Because it makes a lot of things that may annoy you make more sense. And now I'm trying to tap into the heart. So I'm trying to give you more than just this knowledge up here, because this can only go so far, but I have to tap into the heart. So I'm usually trying to tap into the heart to raise the level of empathy and compassion, and then work on some exercises to get people to work together. So that's one way I definitely do it when it comes to like business and organizations. And that's the reason why it's been so effective. I absolutely love it. And you have to protect the culture. You know, you have to protect the culture and look at it. And the last thing, from a professional standpoint, it's looking at it, seeing things they cannot see.
Yeah.
Can you look at a meta level of what's happening and then share it? Because those things are so helpful, because, you know, when you're inside the picture frame, you can't see the picture really. So a lot of times when they're working, you're operating, but you don't see the patterns that keep happening, that if you disrupt this pattern just slightly, it could alter the whole way things are happening. Things will work really well.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, that's a lot of what I do. I love that piece of it, looking at it from there, because I'll share this, and this is something I find in a lot of organizations. If we can find the structural issue that is causing the biggest conflict between people and resolve that thing, that usually alleviates the people who are like going against each other and mad at each other. Because sometimes there's literally a structural issue with how something was put together, or the system that makes it, you know, the system almost puts people against people based on what this needs for their department, what they need for their department. So if you can find that thing, it's like, oh, that's what that is. We're arguing about this little bitty thing up here, but it's actually this. And so if we can address this, oh my goodness, how things shift and change. Yeah, as far as the board, it's I love what our board is doing and where we're going, the IA Global Board. The inner work is serious, and the way that I bring the Enneagram to it is I try to think in the law of three. This is very recent, by the way. This is what I'm trying to work on. It literally, like, I'm giving you a glimpse into the window. Is the law of three. We have some brilliant people on the board. Absolutely brilliant. I'm sure every board that we have around the world has brilliant people on it. Our affiliate boards, I'm pretty sure. The thing is, how do we get these different brilliant people and different perspectives aligned so that we can do the best for our whole group, our community? That's the thing, because the ego is going to want to win or do things a certain way. And that's every single one of us. So it's a constant humbling inner work. Let me think, let me step back, let me breathe, check in, what's going on, over and over again, so that you can still resonate and move together in an aligned way and have more conversations and try to figure out the roots of stuff. So that's more or less how I'm like using the Enneagram with the board. Is like, okay, let's look at the law of three here. How do we got resistance, we got affirming forces. What can reconcile this thing? Like, let's figure this out. So yeah.
Lovely. That's really lovely. That sounds like an amazing experience to be part of there too. So for us as a new community, as a new affiliate, any advice around not just building membership, but a thriving, relational, values-aligned community? What would you be your advice for us?
Yeah, so my advice for as you build is, oh my goodness. So I'm gonna give a little window into some, like, I personally have to work on. All right. So I am I operate from the type 7 lens, have a lot of work there. And one thing that I always have to remember, and I keep learning over and over again, is that don't rush. Sometimes there's this feeling of, and there's a balance. You don't want to be so stuck and don't move forward that you're outdated, like everything's outdated. We don't want to do that either. But don't rush when it comes to having really good conversations to get aligned. That's the area I don't want you to rush in. Like, because when you get aligned, you can move really fast, really quickly. And all these boards have brilliant people. That's not the problem. Is not execution usually. It's usually we get jumbled up at the beginning, and then there's a frustration. And then we want to push to make it happen. And then somebody else wants to pull. And it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like, why are we so frustrated over this one thing that in the scheme of things, it's actually small, but we've made it so big, right?
Mm.
So not rushing the healthy conversations you need to be aligned. That's number one. Like learning that. I've learned that the hard way, and I'm just saying I've got through 101 of that class pretty well in 201. So
Yep.
so the other thing I would say, culture, because you can have the best policies, plans, processes, procedures, and if your culture isn't healthy, if you aren't tending to the culture on a regular basis, it doesn't matter, because the bad, unhealthy culture will tank any great procedure, process, anything you have that's good. So you have to protect the culture, develop ways to make sure you have a wonderful, healthy, thriving culture. Check in about your culture, see what's going on with culture, right? Because those things will drive you all into either alignment or disalignment in a lot of different ways. But if you have a healthy culture, you can bring yourself back when you get frustrated, have some conflict. You're like, okay, all right, let's breathe. All right, let's take a moment. Let's breathe. Okay, let's come back and let's figure this out together, because we all care. That's the thing about it. Like, you get a bunch of people who care, and sometimes we forget the other person on the other side cares just as much as we do. And that's why they're so fired up, you
Yeah.
know? So protect the culture. Whatever your culture is, do the things to make sure it's a healthy culture that honors every person there. So that's going to be super important. Okay. The third thing I would say for a new affiliate as you're building, I would just inspire you to stay curious and creative. And this is something I'm working with the board: culture, creativity, and curiosity. Like, if you can stay curious around maybe new way of doing things, new way of looking at things, different approaches that to different things, right? It will help so much. And when I say curious questions, I mean be investigative, not interrogative, because there's our questions too, but they're looking for a certain answer. We're looking for investigative curiosity. How can I just wonder, be open-minded enough to say, okay, that's a really different way of doing things. I don't know. We're used to doing things this way, or this is the way in my organization we built things, so it'll probably work for this organization. Being open and be like, okay, I'm gonna share this, but I'm not gonna hold on to it too tightly.
Yep.
Okay. And then the creativity piece, being creative means so much. Creativity is so important, because we live in a world that's moving so fast. Creativity, we all need creativity to happen, because we have to be able to be innovative and think on our feet when the world throws us something new, or something new happens in the area. It's like, okay, how can we be creative and problem solve this, right? Maybe not the same way we've done it before, but what's a unique different way that we do it based on our region? Like we were talking about before, you asked me before, which is a beautiful question: what's special about our region? Sometimes it's the creativity we bring because we're innovative based on our region. So I would say those are probably the biggest things that I would um, share, because they can trickle into all of the other like finite details and getting things right and all this type of stuff. But if you could hold those things high: creativity, curiosity, culture, and not rushing, um, alignment type conversations, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Lovely. That's awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think there is a chance, if people would like to ask questions, maybe put them in the chat. And I'd love to hear what people would like to talk to Milton about. So I invite you to do that. And we've only got a few more minutes before we'll have a bit of a pause, and then we'll be welcoming Russ Hudson for his piece. And I'm hearing something from Tracy. I'm so inspired by Milton and resonate with everything he says. I thought, oh, it's okay. I thought that would be a question, but no, I completely agree. And I think I do need to put in a plug for signing up as a member if you haven't already done so. I've got this very cool little QR code in the corner of my screen. Apparently that works, and you can go straight to signing up if you haven't already done so. Or the website is Enneagram AANZ.org.au. And we would really value as many people as possible to sign up for this week. And Can I take this opportunity, Milton, to thank you for your generosity and your support and your wisdom and your encouragement. It's been invaluable to us, and it makes us feel seen at a global level, which is great. I've got a question for you from Kate. What inspired Milton to become president?
Oh, okay. It's very interesting. That's a good question. I'm just gonna say what comes to me. I don't think I aimed to be president. I think I grew in the organization, learned a lot, done a lot of inner work. Like I've learned a lot, trust me. But it kind of, I would say, groomed me and educated me into being able to say, okay, I think I have the skills that can help lead us on this next chapter. My master's degree is in leadership, and I actually love leadership. Like I really do. Even though, my goodness, we were talking about it beforehand, and I know it is not for the faint of heart. Leadership is not for the faint of heart, but it is. I do love the community. I love what the Enneagram has done for me. And the first IEA conference I ever went to has literally changed my life. So the first conference I went to was like 6 years ago. Like I wasn't even a member. This is what's wild. The story. I wasn't even a member. And I met these amazing people. I have some friends who are like friends for life. I met business professionals who we're like business partners now. Some of my best friends came from that first conference I went to. And I love them. Like we do work together. We do retreats together. Next week I'm doing a retreat with 2 of them. Like that's how amazing, from the first conference I went to. And I've been able to stay at people's houses. I've been to people's weddings. Like I was.
Oh,
Not sure why he's frozen. Hopefully
And
he'll be back.
just at an animating moment too. I'm hoping Milton will refresh.
show up when the moment presents itself, like every one of us, when the moment presents itself, because this is another thing. I always want to empower people, like no matter who we are. And when we have this tool with the Enneagram and we're doing our inner work, I want us to be able to heal but empower people, because a lot of times people feel like that they don't have the power to make a change and create and do wonderful things. And if we can do that,
Yeah.
that's how we really change the world. We empower people. So I guess those things culminate to me saying, like, I think I could do this president thing, and I want to do it.
Yeah.
Because the future is coming. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Milton. Thank you, everybody who has joined us. We're going to give people a 10-minute break before we invite you back for Russ Hudson's presentation. And can't wait to see you all back there. And also have a look at the program. There's a lot of other offerings for the rest of the week. Something for everybody. Russ will be introducing an up-to-date description of the 9 types. But then during the week, we've got 9 different presenters doing an hour-long deep dive into each of the types. So if you want to explore and be a bit curious about that, I recommend you have a look at that. And lots of other people. We've got some amazing presenters coming, so I'm very, very excited to see it all unfold. Thank you again, Milton, and I hope to see you all in about 10 minutes' time for Russ Hudson's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you all.